Yes, it takes a great effort. Yes, it takes a great will. But just like anything else, once that system begins to switch on, everybody says the same thing. That was so worth the effort.
Hello and welcome to the Pacific Channel. I'm your host, Steve Doherty. Have you ever had someone like an instructor, a parent, a teacher, or a coach tell you to do something, but they didn't explain why they wanted you to do it? Personally, that always frustrated me. I want to know why, and I'm willing to bet that you do too. It's like in the Karate Kid movie when Daniel-san was told by his mentor to wax on and wax off. Daniel-san gets frustrated because he has to wash Mr. Miyagi's car, paint the fence, and do other things that don't make any sense to him. He doesn't know the why, but later when he finds out the why, it all makes sense to him, and he realizes that was part of the training. When we know why we should do something, then it gives meaning and importance to it, and we feel more motivated to do it. Dr. Joe Dispenza understands this and even makes this point. But some of the things he teaches are complex from a layman's perspective. That would be me. But it's worth it to do our best to understand them. So in this video, he explains the why of many things. He will explain why he has people breathe in slowly and deeply, tighten all of the muscles around their energy centers, then hold it and imagine that they are drawing up fluid from the bottom of their spine to the top of their head. He will explain all of the details of it. He is also going to explain how we all have crystals on our pineal gland that acts like a radio receiver, and how when you apply physical pressure on your gland, you create something called the piezoelectric effect, which creates an electrical charge. If you ever wondered how it is that you are both a transmitter and receiver of information out into the quantum field, this video will explain it in more detail. He's also going to talk about how in 3D reality, the pineal gland manufactures serotonin and melatonin, but it also has, and many other glands too, dormant abilities for the 5D world of energy, waveform, and ultimately possibility. He's also going to talk about how your thoughts are connected to certain feelings that influence very specific hormonal centers in your body. So if you think an angry thought, you're going to activate your adrenal system, your survival system. And then there are consequences to doing that. Let's listen to Dr. Joe explain all of this now.
I'm your host, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Let's begin.
So the majority of people's thoughts are connected to certain feelings that influence very specific hormonal centers in the body. For example, if you think an angry thought, you are going to release certain chemicals that activate your adrenal system. You're going to begin to activate survival systems. If you feel suffering, or if you feel pain, or you feel guilty, you produce a different biochemical reaction, produces different hormonal centers to be activated. So most people's thoughts and feelings are taking most of the energy of those thoughts and storing them in the first three energy centers of the body. People call them chakras, but the first three centers are centers of survival. And the procreation, consumption, and fight or flight is how most people have survived the majority of their lives. In other words, in survival, it's not a good time to open your heart. So very little people actually make the effort to open their heart. And most of their thoughts and feelings are activating these lower centers. So the majority of the body's energy is stored in these first three centers. So then 95% of that energy stored in the body has to be liberated and driven back to the brain. So we do this breath as a way to pull the mind out of the body or ascend the energy. And yogis would probably love this breath because they have a lot of conscious control over the intrinsic muscles of their body. So the breath is about contracting those intrinsic muscles, the muscles of the perineum, the front and back muscles we use for elimination, the muscles of our lower abdomen or upper abdomen. When we inhale through our nose and we squeeze these muscles, what we're doing is we're pulling that energy from those lower centers up into the brain.
Now, the moment you wake up in the morning and your eyes open up and the wavelength of visible light is perceived in your eye. That wavelength of light hits the optic nerve, and the optic nerve sends a signal to a nucleus, which then sends a signal to another part of the brain, and then all of a sudden, the pineal gland gets a signal to make a chemical called serotonin. Serotonin is the daytime neurotransmitter. Our brain go into what's called beta brainwave patterns, and now we're alert, we're aware, we are aware that we have a body, we're aware that there's an environment, and we're very aware of time. Now, the inhibition of light, or the loss of light, when it gets dark, all of a sudden there's no more wavelength of light. The pineal gland switches off, and it takes serotonin and it begins to make another chemical called melatonin. Melatonin is the nighttime neurotransmitter, and melatonin then begins to change our brain waves into alpha, theta, and ultimately delta, and the body now can go into restorative sleep. So serotonin gets us up, melatonin puts us to sleep, and it's a function of what's called the circadian rhythm. How the sun rises and sets, people get used to that rhythm, right?
Yes.
So, however, there's latent systems in the brain when the pineal gland becomes activated, it has tiny little crystals in it that are calcite crystals, calcium carbonate crystals, and they're kind of rhombohedrons. So when the pineal gland becomes activated, those tiny little crystals begin to shimmer, and they begin to become electrically activated. And once they become electrically activated, they become sensitive to frequencies, not frequencies of light. Light has to go through the eyes, through the senses. Once it's activated, it begins to pick up frequencies that are not perceived by the senses, and it transduces that frequency, because that frequency is carrying information, into very profound imagery. And now the person is having an inner vision. That's why it's called the third eye. And that inner vision is way more real than anything you've ever experienced in your three-dimensional reality. This is a very, very low frequency, but this is a very fast frequency. And all of a sudden, the pineal gland begins to make metabolites. Now, melatonin is already an antioxidant, but now the derivatives of melatonin, when this gland is activated, produces very powerful antioxidants that heal: anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-heart disease, anti-stroke, anti-neurodegenerative, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. You take the molecule, you tweak it again, you have a benzodiazepine. What is that? That's Valium. It's your body. Melatonin already relaxes you, but now, hang on. You are going to really chill out. You're going to be, survival centers in your body are going to be shut off, because that's what benzodiazepines do. They shut off your survival centers. So now you feel relaxed. It produces a chemical that puts the body into stasis. The first three centers, you lose sex drive, you lose appetite, you lose the preoccupation with your environment. The body is no longer, the mind, it's no longer driving us. Now you can dream without being interfered with your body.
Now, when you inhale, normally when we're just hanging out and breathing, when you inhale, the sutures of your skull slightly open up, and your bone, the base of your spine, called your sacrum, that upside down triangle, actually flexes back. So when you inhale and those sutures open up and your sacrum flexes back, the spinal fluid drains. When you exhale, the sacrum flexes forward and those sutures close, and it pushes the fluid up. And so inhaling and exhaling begins to propagate a wave. Now, cerebrospinal fluid is made of proteins and salts in solution. And proteins and salts in solution have a charge. When you drop them in solution, they have a negative or positive charge. So now when you begin to inhale and you begin to pull that cerebrospinal fluid up towards your brain and you accelerate those charged molecules, according to physics, when you accelerate a charged molecule, you create a invisible field called an inductance field. So now there's information going from your brain to your body and from your body to the brain all the time. But when you do this breath and you start accelerating those charged molecules, you create this inductance field moving in a certain direction, and all of a sudden, all that energy from those lower centers start moving up to the brain. If you do this properly, and you have a little passion, and you start moving this fluid, there'll come a moment where the sympathetic nervous system will switch on and merge with the parasympathetic nervous system. And when that happens, all of a sudden, all the energy you use to make a baby, all the energy you use to digest a meal, all the energy you use in a stress response, instead of it being released out chemically, it's being drawn up to the brain. All that energy goes right up into the limbic brain, and it hits a gland called the pineal gland.
It produces a chemical that's the same chemical found in electric eels. Now the nervous system becomes amplified. Now it's electric. Your brain is going to switch on and you're going to have a lot of energy in there. And it produces that same chemical called dimethyltryptamine, which is a very powerful hallucinogenic. And now your brain is going to literally perceive another world, and it's going to be more real than this world. And we activate that system because I want people to realize that they're not a linear being living a linear life, that we are dimensional beings living a dimensional life. And you only need one of those experiences, Tobias, and you can't go back to being the same person again, because you realize this probably is the illusion and more real. So there's a principle in biology, and it's an important principle. It's called endowment. And endowment means nature never wastes anything. Mm-hmm. So the principle in nature is if you don't use it, you lose it. Just get rid of it, right? So why do we have 98.5% of our DNA unused and it hasn't gone away? Why do we have this gland that hasn't been used by its full capacity? How come it's still there? We have all this. How come we have these big brains and we're not capitalizing off of that? Because those systems are waiting to be activated. It's our divine aspect of ourselves. So yes, it takes a great effort. Yes, it takes a great will. But just like anything else, once that system begins to switch on, everybody says the same thing. That was so worth the effort. When you start pumping that cerebrospinal fluid, there's little cilia on the end of the pineal gland, little hairs, and when the fluid starts moving through the brain, through those caverns, it tickles the hairs. Mm-hmm. When we have people inhale and they hold their breath and they pump that fluid, they're pushing that fluid up against those crystals. Mm-hmm. And the crystals, this is research now, have a piezoelectric property. What does that mean? When you compress those crystals, the compression of those crystals, mechanical stress, turns into an electrical charge. Now, once they're electrically activated, they start to shimmer. Once they start to shimmer, they're now going to receive information. And now it's a radio dial. It's going to pick up information, and the brain's going to transduce it into imagery. And now that latent system switched on, and hang on, because people say, I want the unknown, but whoa, when it comes, it's big. Look, I mean, do you believe that everything that we're learning about the Egyptians is everything? No. Our research shows that when that system switches on in the brain, the entire limbic system of the brain, the limbic brain, in our research is on fire. It is highly activated. What is the limbic system? It's the pineal, it's the pituitary, it's the thalamus, it's the hypothalamus, it's the corpus callosum. It's just little package. Right underneath there, the hippocampus, the amygdala, this whole kind of network. That eye of Horus is a side section of that part of the brain. So our research shows that that limbic brain switches on. The Egyptians knew the thinking brain was the architect, the designer, and that this system was the creator. Mm-hmm. So design it with your thinking brain, but then surrender it and get out of the way and allow this system to hook up to energy and begin to turn it into to an experience. So I think the Egyptians, there's a lot of secrets in that culture that we haven't been told. There certainly the gods were real. Certainly the pharaohs had a connection to the gods, and certainly there were initiations that were about activating another world.
We would love to give back to our Pacific family for all the love and support they have given us. We are offering 2 lucky winners a ticket to Dr. Joe Dispenza's week-long retreat in Sunshine Coast, Australia, worth $2,300 each. To enter the giveaway, you must be a subscriber to our channel Pacific. Like this video, comment how our channel has helped you. Share this video with any 5 people. And stay tuned on our channel as we will declare the winner soon. Please refer to the description below for more info. Good luck.
So, all of our negative thoughts and feelings are pretty much stored in the first 3 energy centers or chakras in the body, which are the centers for survival. These are the first 3 energy centers or chakras that are related more to matter and our physicality than they are to spirit. In other words, as you go up the energy centers of the body from the lowest one to the top, you move more and more from physical to non-physical, from matter to higher frequencies, from particle to wave. So your perineum energy center is the densest and the most grounded in matter, while your pineal gland energy center and or your crown chakra are the least dense and are rooted more in the non-physical, spiritual wave instead of particle realm. As Dr. Joe said, when you're in survival mode, when you are angry, when you are depressed, when you are sad, or when you are feeling guilty, that is not a good time to open up your heart, which is required so that you can connect to the quantum field and create the future that you want. And can you now see why, even if someone does something bad or mean to you, it is detrimental to your personal well-being to stay upset or angry about it? Of course, we are all human, and we may not be able to stop getting angry in a heated moment, but we can control whether or not we hold on to that anger. So, Dr. Joe said that we do the breath and contract or squeeze our muscles, starting at the perineum, to pull the mind out of the body, or stated another way, to pull negative energy that we stored in those lower 3 centers up, including the 4 additional ones, through our spinal column and into the brain. What he's saying is that this is how we liberate that energy, and it's also how to have a mystical experience and to activate your body's ability to powerfully heal yourself of anything. The other very important thing to understand that Dr. Joe said is that when the pineal gland becomes activated, it has tiny little crystals in it that begin to shimmer or vibrate or become electrically activated. And when this happens, then they become sensitive to frequencies. And when this happens, it's going to receive information from the field. But also, when the pineal gland is activated this way, Dr. Joe said that this is when people have a profound vision. And this is why they call it the third eye. And that reality will feel more real than this reality. But also, according to Dr. Joe, your health will greatly improve when your pineal gland is activated because of how it enhances melatonin to combat aging, heart disease, strokes, inflammation, and much more. So according to Dr. Joe, when you inhale and at the same time you tighten all your muscles surrounding all of the energy centers, it forces that spinal fluid up higher and higher into your brain. And if you do this properly, there will come a moment all that energy from the 3 lower energy centers and others will hit that pineal gland in the brain. This is really mind-blowing information, to be honest, but it explains it so well that you are not a linear being. You are a dimensional being. Dr. Joe has done an excellent job of explaining how all of this works from both scientific and spiritual perspectives. It really gives us the confidence to know that this isn't just some mumbo-jumbo new age woo-woo talk. It's provable through scientific research and data. And when you know the why and the work makes sense, then you will be more motivated and inspired to do the work. If you enjoyed this video, please demolish the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Additionally, if you want to be eligible to win a free ticket to one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's week-long courses, please share this video with 5 of your friends and comment below. We had our very first free group coaching session this last Saturday, and the 2 volunteers we had both got relief from their issues. Sorry if you didn't get the invite in time. Some technical problems kept the invite from making it to a lot of you. We have another new group coaching session starting up this coming Sunday, January 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. For registration, please provide your email to the one shown in the description below. I hope you can make it. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Daniel Shani and his kids who are in competitive sports. Daniel, you're giving your kids such a great start in life. And kids, kudos to you for taking an interest in this kind of thing. The world needs more kids like you. And now, if you have any questions, please ask them below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or leave a comment about what you think about this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.